Hello again to those who just joined us. My name is Frank Schwittay. I am the Vice President for Europe here at Trend Micro, and I have now the great opportunity to be with Vincent Blake from Pearson's. Vincent, how are you doing?
Hey Frank, I'm doing really, really well, and thank you so much for inviting me today. I'm really excited to speak to you.
Yeah, great pleasure for us for sure. Hey, Vincent, let's get started. I would like to ask uh, you sharing with all of the audience here from all over the world, actually, to tell a little bit more about you, the organization, and specifically some of the key challenges that you are facing in your role within Pearson's, who is one of the leading global learning organizations.
Yeah, thanks, Frank. Yeah, so a little bit about Pearson. Pearson, we are a leading education company. We look to help people improve their lives through education, and that's digital education. But we also do things like assessments as well. My role, I cover two areas. So I have a left side of my brain and a right side of my brain. So on the left side of my brain, I focus on our enterprise platforms, and and I'm responsible for the risk management of those platforms. And on the other side of my brain, I cover the governance, risk, and compliance of the company. The policies, the way we do risk management, the way we drive compliance. In regards to the kind of problems, I'm sort of focused on really in three areas. I have a very dynamic side of the organization, which is pivoting to D2C. I have a legacy part of the organization, and I have the CISO element as well. If I take that first problem area, it's how does CISO change and operate within agile teams? Working through CI/CD pipelines, working through cloud, getting DevSecOps moving, and that form of culture. Then, if you look at the legacy side of the organization, is how do I maintain control over that? And that's one area that Trend has been very, very helpful for me, and also getting the business continue to be focused on that area so that they invest in the right way. They can't just invest in the new things; they've got to keep control of the old as well. And then finally, around CISO, I can really break there. There's the policy and compliance, making sure that remains relevant in a fast-moving organization. Be it, moving towards more of a model about trusting but verifying things. And then secondly, in SecOps, given that there's so much data that we can consume, data from logs, data from threat intel, data from vulnerabilities, you name it. What do you do with all that data? How can you make sense of it, prioritize it, turn it into actionable information, and afford to pay for all that logs? It's extremely, it's a really dynamic kind of problem. And then lastly, talent. How can I attract the right talents? How can I develop the right talent? How do I retain them, keep them excited? That's a real big problem in cybersecurity, particularly as Pearson as an education provider. People don't wake up in the morning and say, well, I'm going to work in their career and say, I'm going to work at Pearson. So I'm competing with a lot of digital provider and content providers for those best talent.
Wow, Vincent, that's impressive. There's so much you have to think of and you have on your plate. You mentioned about the modern world, and, for most organizations, digital transformation has accelerated, in particular over the last year. The pandemic has clearly accelerated things also in that area. So what does digital transformation mean for Pearson's? And with that, what are your key priorities or your key projects that you would like to share to the audience?
Yeah, thanks, Fran. I think it's really important to put digital transformation into a business context. So with Pearson, as well as doing the digital transformation, we are also looking at reorganizing the whole business at the same time. So as we had a new CEO last year, Andy Bird, who's come from Disney, and as truly inspirational in his thoughts processes of how the organization should run. So we've gone from a very centralized model to a decentralized model, and we're going through that change. What does decentralized mean? Is effectively the businesses are now become more responsible for their technology, for their process and their people. So that sort of changed the dynamic of how do I help them to be secure in that way. For our customers, digital transformation becomes from learning from a book to really having an experience, that that they learn from. So it's like having an immersive video, an immersive film, and all tailored to how does that learner want to learn or able to learn, because everybody learns in a very different way. So the technologies to deliver that are manyfold, and in securing all those requires a lot of different techniques. Threat modeling, working with the business to understand it, working with research and development teams, the devs. Now that is a very different dynamic than you would have done in a traditional business. Taking the kind of the overall business transformation, we've been going through that 5-7 years now, and actually COVID has accelerated it for our customers, but we've been very much ready for it from word go. And when we needed to pivot for our teams to work from home, we were able to do 80% of the organization overnight, which was really fantastic. We did have the odd case, of course, so we had a few people that didn't have a laptop, so okay, you can go and take your desktop in the Uber and take that home, but can you do these things while you get there? So we had to pivot around and be very agile about how the business changed. But of course, that transformation is now here for good. And we're looking at business models now, operational models, where in fact you go into the office and it's an event. It's been described as an event. You go to collaborate, so you have different collaboration tools in the office. You may not go to a Pearson office anymore. You may go to a shared office, as an MSS office, a managed service office, or you may be working from home. So the pieces and the risk tolerance that we may have had a year ago when we got into COVID changes. So we need to be able to respond to that. And the ways we're responding to that is, last year we agreed to a 3-year digital security strategy across all of our stakeholders, whether they're business or their technology. And that's been broken up into 7 different journeys. And those 7 different journeys could be delivered in 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, or beyond. Even though we described it as 3 years, it could take longer, depending on the envelope of finances available. Within those journeys, the key ones are the user journey, securing the user. So we're looking at DLP this year. We're looking at MCAS, or it's clue to the product. We're rolling out E5, Microsoft E5 across the organization, because we want to be able to enable our users to work anywhere from any device in a very secure way. And I think E5 has given us that, but it gets us on the road to having a CASB in place so that we can eliminate things like shadow IT going on, which will be important when we go to a decentralized model. On cloud side of problem areas, we're looking at cloud posture management, having where we've had a myriad of different tools in the past. Can we do it with one enterprise tool that effectively integrates everything we do? And another sort of area that we'll focus on is the vendor. So as well as we're transforming and being impacted by COVID, our partners have the same. So how do we work with those partners? There's two risks with the partners. Is one, the contractual risk, the access to the data they have, and then secondly, the way they connect with you. So on the contractual side, the most of vendor approaches before have always been around doing a security audit when you start engaging them with a contract. That's kind of okay, but it's only one point in time. So what we're looking at now is how do we continuously assess our vendors? So if there is a change in their security posture, we know about it and we can raise that issue with the vendor or partner at the time. And we've seen this. Definitely seen an uptick in our supply chain being targeted over the last year, and we've put in the controls as a result. And if we look at the access side, is managing that much better. So in the past, we may have trusted our partners a little bit more than we should have done. You're using VPNs and then allowing their access. Now we're really focused on, well, we're only going to permit you access if you're going through a virtual desktop. And we want absolute control, and we want to log you. And if there is an incident, I want the name of your CISO, so I can speak to you personally and resolve the issue there and then. So yeah, there's lots of different dynamic things we put into our strategy to help the business really continuing on the digital transformation, because it is a continuation. It's slightly changed, and with the business change as well on top of that, it's changed. The whole dynamic of the organization is being executed differently.
Cool. Thank you for sharing. A lot of context, Vincent. Thank you. So, earlier today we have been discussing about risk and compliance at this event. And you also mentioned that you also are in charge for risk and compliance in Pearson's. So, how relevant is it really for you guys? And what is the approach that you are taking with that? And what are maybe some of the priorities that you have in your mind right now?
Yeah, thanks, Frank. So I think risk, it remains extremely relevant to any organization, any digital organization, or any traditional, because fundamentally risk is about how do you deal with proactive issues before they happen. And putting a quantitative assessment on that, or a qualitative assessment on that the business can really engage with. So the classic framework that we have at Pearson is that we engage with the audit committee, which has members from our executive management team and other stakeholders, and we see them face to face on an annual basis, talking about risk. We also do a quarterly report around our business resilience risk. So that's a kind of a classic approach. But there's two areas that we've changed to be more adaptive to the new environment. One is, how do we work with a decentralized business model? And two, how do we work with the development team? So if we take the first part, the decentralized model with the business, we come up with an approach called the Shared Technology and Organizational Risk Management Framework, or STORM, because you've got to have an acronym and you've got to have a bit of a brand, of course. Now, what that does is that we engage with the business presidents, and we really look at how do we collaborate with them so that we get better data on risk from their business, so that we help enable their accountability. So what I can bring, and my team can bring, and technology teams can bring, we can bring the kind of, what does the product risk look like? What does our enterprise platforms look like? But what we need from the business, which we wouldn't necessarily have a lens on before, is what are the business process risks? What are the vendor risks? And what are the people risks? So we're collaborating with the business so that we can get that risk data and be able to present a very meaningful scorecard or dashboard that will be presented at a business level and engage with the president, and then move on from that to we bring all that together for our audit committee. Now that's the approach we're doing with this decentralized model. Now with the developers, there's always been a kind of disconnect with vulnerabilities identified in code during the development process, and risk accountability and sign-off. The risk accountability sign-off can be quite slow, and too slow for an agile process. So what we're doing in that area is, how do we integrate things like JIRA, scanning tools, almost like a CI/CD pipeline sort of approach with our risk platforms, our enterprise risk platforms, so that you then get a link from a developer identifying a risk, and then get an approval from the business in a very quick turnaround and phase, so that you still get the agile team can work fast, and you still get the accountability that goes with it.
Wow. So interesting to hear about your insights, Vincent. Thank you so much. On behalf of Trend Micro globally, it was great having you with us today, all of your sharing with all of your peers across the globe from all of the other organizations. Very interesting, inspiring to hear from you, about your knowledge, your experience, and your priorities, and what are your key projects. So thank you very much for that, Vincent. Thank you.
Thank you, Frank. It's been a real pleasure. It really is a pleasure, and an honour to be invited and present and share my thoughts with the rest of your customers and the wider world. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you so much. So let me check with my co-host Leah if we have any questions here from the audience. Leah, over to you.